The church doors opened slowly, letting in a gentle stream of sunlight that caught on the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the polished wooden floor. Emma stood just inside the entrance, her heart pounding quietly beneath the layers of her wedding dress. She held tightly to her father's arm, feeling the steady strength of him beside her. Outside, guests were settling into their seats, the murmur of soft conversation filling the air like a warm blanket. Everything was supposed to be perfect. The flowers smelled faintly of lilies and roses, the music began to play softly, and the stained glass windows told stories of hope and faith. Yet, despite the calm beauty surrounding her, Emma's mind was a restless sea. She blinked rapidly, trying to focus on the moment, but an unexplainable unease crept through her chest. The smile she wore was practiced, but inside, a flicker of doubt glimmered. Her fiancé, Jake, waited at the altar. He stood tall and confident in his suit, a small nervous smile tugging at his lips as he watched the guests, unaware of the storm brewing behind Emma's eyes. He was the man she had dreamed of marrying, the one she thought she knew better than anyone else. But now, as the organ began its first gentle notes, Emma's gaze flickered to the crowd. That's when she saw him, Daniel, her childhood best friend. He stood near the back, but something in his posture stopped her heart for a moment. Daniel's shoulders were tight, and his face was pale, his eyes darting nervously like he was carrying a secret too heavy to hold. Emma's breath caught. The music swelled and the congregation quieted in anticipation, but Daniel didn't move. Instead, he slowly made his way toward her. Each step felt heavier, more urgent. Emma's father noticed him too, his brow furrowing slightly in confusion. Daniel's eyes locked on Emma's, and without a word, he leaned in close. His voice was barely audible, trembling with a mix of fear and desperation. "Don't marry him," he whispered. Emma froze. The words hung between them like a cold mist. Her heart thundered painfully as confusion and disbelief battled inside her. Why now? Why here? The world seemed to narrow around her. The soft music faded into silence. The guests blurred at the edges. The moment she had anticipated for months shattered into 1,000 fragile pieces. She glanced down the aisle at Jake, who smiled confidently, unaware of the secret Daniel carried. Daniel's eyes searched hers, begging silently for her to listen. The weight of his warning pressed on Emma's chest, but her mind spun wildly, desperate to make sense of the impossible. Was this a cruel joke? A misunderstanding? Or was there something she had never seen? Her father squeezed her arm gently, sensing her hesitation, but she was caught in a storm she could neither control nor escape. The seconds stretched endlessly as Emma struggled to find her voice. Around her, the world waited. The music paused, the guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats, the air thick with expectancy. But Emma could only hear the pounding of her own heart and Daniel's urgent whisper. Her hands trembled slightly, and she clutched her bouquet tighter, the delicate white flowers seeming fragile in her grasp. Daniel motioned subtly toward a quiet corner of the church. Emma nodded slowly, her legs heavy as if weighted by 1,000 doubts. She took a deep breath and followed him away from the expectant eyes and silent whispers, each step feeling like a betrayal of the moment she had dreamed of since she was a little girl. In the hushed privacy of the side chapel, Daniel's face was pale and drawn. His voice dropped even lower as he spoke, each word deliberate, carrying the weight of something Emma wasn't prepared for. "There are things you don't know about Jake. Things I found out recently. Things that could change everything." Emma's breath hitched. Her mind raced, trying to reconcile the man she loved with the stranger Daniel described. She shook her head slightly, unwilling to believe, but deep down, a cold knot of fear tightened in her stomach. "What things?" she whispered, voice barely steady. Daniel's eyes filled with pain. "Promises broken, lies hidden. He's not the man you think he is." Emma closed her eyes, overwhelmed by a rush of emotions: confusion, betrayal, fear, and sadness. The day she had imagined for so long was slipping away, replaced by a harsh reality she never wanted to face. She opened her eyes and looked back toward the main church hall, where Jake waited, smiling and hopeful. Her heart broke, but deep inside, a voice whispered louder than ever before, "You deserve the truth." Emma's fingers trembled as she gripped the delicate bouquet. The scent of fresh lilies, meant to soothe, only made her heart ache more. She glanced at Daniel, whose eyes held a painful urgency. His voice, low and strained, was the only thing anchoring her as the church walls seemed to close in around them. "Emma, you have to listen carefully," he said, swallowing hard before continuing. "Jake, he's not the man you think he is. There's a side of him no one knows about, not even you." Emma's breath hitched. The quiet chapel felt heavy with silence, broken only by the faint echo of distant murmurs from the main sanctuary. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Her mind was racing, desperate for answers, yet terrified of what she might hear. Daniel looked away, his jaw tight. "I didn't want to believe it myself, but I found out from someone who was close to him years ago. Jake promised things, promises he never kept. Lies he hid, not just little ones, Emma, but things that could hurt you deeply." A cold shiver ran down Emma's spine. She pictured Jake's warm smile, the kindness she thought she saw in his eyes. How could there be hidden shadows beneath that? "Why didn't you tell me before?" she asked, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Why wait until today?" Daniel's eyes glistened. "I was afraid it would ruin everything. I hoped it was just rumors, something I misunderstood. But then I found proof. And when I heard the wedding was today, I couldn't stay silent." Emma swallowed hard, the weight of the moment crushing her. Her dreams of walking down the aisle, of starting a new life with Jake, felt like a fragile glass slipping through her hands. She wanted to believe in the man she loved, but the truth was knocking too loudly to ignore. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This was given to me by someone who used to be close to Jake. Letters, messages, things Jake tried to hide. You deserve to see it." Emma took the envelope, her fingers numb. She didn't open it immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes, struggling to steady her breath. When she finally peeked inside, her heart twisted at the words: apologies for mistakes, admissions of lies, promises broken to someone else, long before she ever met Jake. She felt dizzy, overwhelmed. How many times had she brushed aside warning signs? How many quiet moments had she missed the truth hiding in plain sight? The church music began again, a soft melody calling her back to the ceremony. But Emma felt trapped between two worlds: the life she wanted and the reality she now faced. Her father's gentle voice broke through the fog. "Emma," he said softly, concern etched on his face. She looked up, forcing a small smile, but inside, her heart was breaking. Daniel stepped closer. "You don't have to decide anything now," he said, "but you need to think carefully. This isn't just about today, it's about your future." Emma nodded, tears spilling freely now. She thought of Jake waiting at the altar, the hopeful gleam in his eyes. Could she face him after hearing this? Could she stand before everyone knowing the truth? The church doors opened again, and guests shifted in their seats, glancing toward the aisle, waiting. The moment was slipping away, and with it, the life Emma had planned. She took a deep breath and wiped her tears. Her voice was firm now, steadier than she felt. "I need some time," she said quietly, meeting Daniel's gaze. "Before I say anything, I need to be sure." Daniel nodded, relief mixed with sadness in his eyes. "Whatever you decide, I'm here." Emma turned slowly back toward the main hall. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she knew this was her moment to be honest with herself. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she understood that the truth, no matter how painful, was the only way forward. As she reached the entrance, the crowd held their breath. All eyes were on her. Emma squared her shoulders and walked down the aisle, not as a bride ready to say "I do," but as a woman reclaiming her strength, ready to face whatever truth awaited her. Emma's steps echoed softly in the quiet church as she approached Jake, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The whispers in the crowd seemed distant now, like a storm raging far away. She saw Jake's confident smile falter as their eyes met. He could tell something was wrong. The man she thought she knew, standing before her, suddenly seemed like a stranger. "Jake," she began, her voice steady but filled with an ache he hadn't heard before. "There's something I need to ask you. Something important." He nodded, confusion flickering across his face. Emma took a deep breath, the words coming out in a rush she couldn't stop. "Daniel told me things. About your past. About promises you made and broke." She watched his expression change, from surprise to something darker, more guarded. For a long moment, Jake said nothing. The silence stretched thick between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Then, slowly, he let out a breath, a faint shadow of regret crossing his features. "Emma, I never wanted you to find out like this." His voice was low, but the tension in it was undeniable. "What are you talking about?" Emma pressed, gripping her bouquet tighter, afraid of what she might hear, but needing to know. Jake looked down, swallowing hard. "There are things in my past, mistakes I made before I met you. Things I kept hidden because I didn't want to hurt you." Emma's eyes searched his face for honesty, but all she saw were cracks in the armor she'd once believed was unbreakable. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "I was scared," Jake admitted. "Scared you'd leave. Scared it would change how you see me. But I was wrong. Keeping it from you has only caused more pain." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, but she blinked them away, wanting to hear everything. "What kind of mistakes?" Jake's voice grew quieter. "I was involved with someone else before you. It was a complicated situation. I promised things I couldn't keep. I lied to protect myself and her. I thought I had moved on, but those promises, they linger." Emma felt a sharp ache twist in her chest. This wasn't the clean love story she'd imagined. It was messy, real, and painful. "Do you still care for her?" she asked, voice trembling. "No," Jake said firmly. "Not anymore. I want to build a future with you." But I had to be honest. The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat, her mind spinning. Trust wasn't something easily rebuilt, especially on the brink of forever. Around them, the church was silent. The guests held their breath, watching the bride and groom stand apart, not as a united couple, but as two people caught in a web of truths and doubts. Emma took a step back, her voice breaking slightly. "I need time, Jake, to process this." He nodded, pain flashing in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll wait." She turned toward the aisle, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The dream of walking down that aisle, hand in hand, was slipping away. Yet beneath the despair, a spark of clarity glowed. Sometimes love means facing the hardest truths, no matter how much they hurt. With each step away from Jake, Emma felt a strange mix of loss and liberation. The future was uncertain, but at least now it would be honest. The crowd watched, some whispering softly, others silent, as Emma's journey toward truth and self-respect began. Emma sat quietly in a small pew near the back of the church, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The soft hum of conversation drifted around her, but she felt distant, trapped in a whirlwind of doubt and pain. Her mind replayed Jake's confession over and over, each word slicing deeper than the last. How could the man she loved have hidden so much? The promises, the lies, the secret past, everything felt like a betrayal she wasn't prepared for. She looked down at her bouquet, the white lilies now seeming fragile and faded, much like the dream she once held dear. The weight of Daniel's warning, the truth Jake had revealed, and her own swirling doubts clashed fiercely inside her. Her heart ached, torn between the man she wanted to believe in and the shadows now creeping into her future. Her father's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Whatever you decide, Emma, it's your choice," he said gently. She nodded, grateful but still unsure. The room felt heavy with waiting for her to say yes or no, for the moment to move forward or collapse entirely. Emma's thoughts drifted to Daniel. His face, pale and serious, haunted her. He had risked everything to come here, to pull her back from the brink of a decision that might have been a mistake. Was his warning born from love or fear? Could she trust him after everything? The organ music began again, soft and hesitant, like the first step on a fragile path. Emma's breath caught as she looked toward the aisle. Jake stood there, waiting, hope shining faintly in his eyes despite the tension that hung between them. He was still the man she had chosen once, but now the choice felt impossible. She thought of all the times they had shared, the laughter, the quiet moments, the plans whispered in the dark. Were those memories lies? Or were they still real, somewhere beneath the surface of broken trust? A sudden knock at the side door startled her. Daniel appeared again, this time with a folder in his hand. He hesitated before sitting down beside her, his voice low and urgent. "Emma, I know it's hard to believe, but there's more. Things you need to know before you say anything." He handed her the folder, the weight of it matching the heaviness in her chest. Emma's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were letters, photos, messages, proof of promises Jake had broken long before their lives had intertwined. Each piece was a shard of the hidden truth, cutting through the illusion she'd held onto for so long. She read silently, tears blurring her vision. This was more than just a mistake. It was a pattern. A story of a man who hid parts of himself, hoping no one would look too closely. Emma's mind wrestled with pain and disbelief. How could love survive on a foundation built with such cracks? Was forgiveness possible? Or was she only fooling herself to hold onto what she wanted? The room seemed to grow colder, the voices around her fading as she sank deeper into her thoughts. She realized now that love wasn't just about hope or dreams. It was about trust, honesty, and respect. Without those, it was fragile, like the lilies in her hands. She looked up, meeting Daniel's eyes. There was sadness there, but also something else, hope. Hope that she would choose herself first, that she would find strength in the truth, no matter how painful. The moments stretched on, the decision looming. Emma knew this was no longer about the wedding day. It was about the life she wanted to build, and whether that life could survive the shadows of the past. Her heart beat loudly in the silence as she stood slowly, clutching her bouquet tighter. The crowd's expectant eyes followed her as she took a step toward the aisle, her resolve growing with each movement. This was her moment, a choice between holding on to a fragile dream or stepping bravely into an uncertain future, one built on truth. Emma's voice, steady and clear, broke the silence. "I need time to think," she said, her gaze locked on Jake's. "I can't say yes today." The words echoed softly through the church, carrying the weight of a woman who was beginning to reclaim her strength. The guests stirred, whispers rising like a gentle wave, but Emma stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. The path ahead was unclear, but for the first time, she knew one thing for certain. She would no longer be silenced by fear or lies. Emma stepped outside the church, the cool air brushing against her tear-streaked face. The afternoon sun was gentle, but her heart was heavy. She leaned against the stone wall, trying to steady her breathing. The crowd inside was still buzzing with whispers and speculation, but out here, she felt a small space to think, to breathe. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was Daniel. She hesitated, but answered. "Emma, are you okay?" His voice was soft, filled with concern. "I don't know," she admitted. "Everything is happening so fast. I thought I knew Jake, but now," her voice broke, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. Daniel was silent for a moment. "You deserve the truth, no matter how hard it is." Emma wiped a hand over her face and looked up at the sky. The truth. It was what she wanted, but it also scared her more than anything. After hanging up, Emma decided she needed to get away, to find a quiet place where she could think clearly. She walked slowly down the church steps and towards a nearby park, the place where she and Jake had spent some of their happiest moments together. Sitting on a worn bench beneath a large oak tree, Emma let the memories wash over her. The laughter, the promises, the dreams, they felt distant now, like a story someone else had told her. She pulled out the folder Daniel had given her earlier and reread the letters and messages. Each one was like a shard of glass, sharp, painful, and impossible to ignore. Her mind kept returning to one question. How could Jake keep such secrets? Had their entire relationship been a lie? Emma's phone rang again. This time it was Jake. She debated whether to answer, but finally did, needing to hear his voice to understand. "Emma," Jake's voice was strained. "Please let me explain. I know I messed up. I should have told you everything, but I was scared of losing you." She took a shaky breath. "Why didn't you trust me enough to be honest?" "Because I wanted to protect you," he said. "I thought if I told you, you'd leave. But I realize now that not telling you has only hurt us both." Emma's heart ached. She wanted to believe him, but the pain was fresh, and trust, once broken, was fragile. "I need time," she whispered. "I can't just forget everything overnight." "I understand," Jake said quietly. "I'll wait as long as you need." After the call ended, Emma sat back against the tree and closed her eyes. She realized that love was never simple. It wasn't just about the happy moments or the promises whispered under stars. It was about facing the hard truths and deciding if the person beside you is willing to be honest, even when it's painful. Hours passed. The park emptied, and the sky turned shades of pink and purple. Emma's phone buzzed again, this time a message from Daniel. "Whatever you decide, I'm here. You deserve happiness, real happiness." Emma smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe her future wasn't written yet. Maybe the hardest choices were the ones that led to the most genuine happiness. She stood up, brushed the dirt from her dress, and took one last look at the fading sunset. Tomorrow was uncertain, but she knew she was stronger than she had ever been. And this time, she would follow her heart, no matter where it led. The next morning, Emma woke with a restless feeling she couldn't shake. Her mind was a storm of thoughts, memories of Jake's smile, Daniel's warning, and the fragile truth she now held close. She sat by the window, sunlight spilling over her hands as she stared at the phone on the table. Messages from Jake and Daniel blinked silently, waiting for her reply. Emma's heart ached with the weight of the choices ahead. She needed clarity, but the lines between love and betrayal felt impossibly blurred. She decided to visit someone she trusted, a woman named Helen, an old family friend who had always been a steady voice in Emma's life. Helen's wisdom had guided Emma through tough times before. Maybe today, she could help her find the strength she needed. When Emma arrived at Helen's cozy home, the scent of freshly brewed tea welcomed her. Helen looked up from her knitting, her eyes immediately sensing the turmoil beneath Emma's calm exterior. "Emma, "Dear, sit down. Tell me what's troubling you." Emma took a deep breath and recounted everything: Daniel's warning, the secret past Jake had hidden, the letters, and her confusion. Helen listened quietly, nodding with understanding, but without judgment. "Love is complicated," Helen said softly when Emma finished. "But trust, that's the foundation. Without it, love can't truly grow." Emma nodded, biting her lip. "I want to believe in Jake, but I don't know if I can anymore. How do I decide what's real?" Helen reached over and squeezed her hand gently. "Sometimes you have to step back and look beyond your feelings. Actions speak louder than words. Has Jake shown you he's willing to be honest now? Is he ready to face the consequences of his mistakes?" Emma thought of Jake's voice on the phone, filled with regret but also hope. "He says he will wait, that he'll be honest." "That's a start," Helen said. "But honesty isn't just about words. It's about change. You need to see that change, not just hear it." Emma felt a flicker of clarity. Maybe she wasn't ready to say yes or no, not yet. Maybe she needed time to watch, to see if Jake could rebuild what was broken. Helen smiled kindly. "Remember, Emma, you deserve someone who values you enough to be truthful from the start. Don't settle for less." Emma thanked her, feeling a newfound strength blooming inside her. She left Helen's house with a quiet resolve. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty, but also small moments of hope. Jake reached out regularly, always honest, never pressuring. He shared pieces of his past, answered questions with openness, and slowly, Emma began to see glimpses of the man she thought she knew. But the scars from betrayal don't fade quickly. Emma struggled with doubt, nights filled with restless thoughts, and tears she didn't let anyone see. The road ahead was long, and forgiveness was a journey, not a destination. One evening, Emma met Daniel for coffee. His presence was steady, and his concern genuine. "I'm sorry for how hard this has been," Daniel said. "I only wanted to protect you." Emma smiled faintly. "I know. Thank you." They talked for hours about trust, friendship, and the complicated paths of the heart. Daniel's support was a reminder that sometimes love came in many forms, not just the kind wrapped in wedding dresses and promises, but the kind that stood by you when everything fell apart. Emma realized that her story wasn't just about one man or one choice. It was about learning to love herself, to demand honesty and respect, and to have the courage to walk away if those things weren't there. The sun set outside the window as Emma sat alone, feeling a mix of sadness and hope. The future was uncertain, but she knew she wasn't alone anymore. Whatever happened next, she was ready to face it, with an open heart and the strength to protect it. Emma stood by the window, watching the rain trace slow paths down the glass. The world outside was gray and quiet, but inside her heart, a storm still raged. She thought about Jake, about the man who had once promised forever but had hidden so much. She wondered if people could truly change, or if the past always cast shadows long enough to darken the brightest future. Days had passed since her conversations with Helen and Daniel, and she had spent much of that time wrestling with her own feelings. Jake had been reaching out more frequently, his words filled with honesty and remorse, but Emma's trust was like fragile glass, cracked and uncertain. One afternoon, Jake appeared at her doorstep. His face was pale, his eyes tired but hopeful. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers, not the perfect roses she was used to, but something simple and real. "Emma, may I come in?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, but stepped aside. The house felt heavy with unspoken words as he entered. "I know I don't deserve your trust right now," Jake began, "but I want to be honest with you. No more secrets, no more hiding." Emma nodded, her voice soft. "I want to believe that, but it's hard." Jake sighed, rubbing his hands together nervously. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I'm seeing a counselor to work on myself. I'm trying to fix the parts of me I ignored for too long." For the first time in weeks, Emma felt a flicker of hope. His willingness to seek help was a sign. Maybe, just maybe, this was more than just words. They talked for hours that day about the past and the future, about pain and forgiveness. Jake shared stories he'd never told anyone, about his fears, his regrets, and the mistakes he was determined not to repeat. Emma listened, feeling the walls around her heart begin to soften. But trust, she knew, wouldn't return overnight. It was a slow process, built on countless small moments and actions. The next few weeks were a mix of uncertainty and progress. Jake showed up when he said he would, answered questions honestly, and slowly rebuilt the fragile bond between them. Emma's doubts didn't disappear completely, but they became quieter, replaced by cautious hope. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Jake took Emma's hands in his. "I don't expect everything to be perfect," he said, "but I want to earn your trust every day, if you'll let me." Emma looked into his eyes, searching for the truth. She saw pain, but also sincerity. "I'm willing to try," she whispered. Their journey wasn't simple or easy, but it was theirs. Two people navigating the broken pieces of a dream, trying to build something real from the ruins. Emma knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but for the first time, she felt ready to walk it, with honesty, patience, and a fragile but growing hope. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. Emma smiled softly, knowing that sometimes, after the darkest storms, the brightest days come. The day finally arrived. The church was filled with soft light, flowers in full bloom, and the quiet hum of anticipation. Emma stood behind the doors, her heart pounding not with fear, but with a steady, calm strength she had earned through months of struggle. Today wasn't just about a wedding. It was about a new beginning, one built on truth and choice. She took a deep breath and stepped into the aisle, her gaze meeting Jake's. This time, the eyes looking back at her were different, clearer, more open. They shared a quiet understanding, born not just from love, but from honesty and hard work. As she walked, memories flashed through her mind, the doubts, the tears, the late-night talks, the moments when she nearly gave up. But also the moments when hope bloomed again, when forgiveness began to heal wounds, and when trust slowly, painstakingly grew. At the altar, Jake reached out, taking her hands gently. His voice was steady as he spoke. "Emma, I won't promise perfection, but I promise honesty, respect, and to work every day to be the man you deserve." Emma squeezed his hands, her smile soft but strong. "And I promise to listen, to forgive, and to love you not just for who you are now, but for who we will become together." The officiant's words echoed around the church as they exchanged vows, but Emma barely heard them. Her world had narrowed to the man before her and the journey that had brought them here. When the ceremony ended, applause filled the room, but Emma's eyes were fixed on Jake's face, hopeful, humbled, and full of love. Afterward, as they moved through the celebration, Emma found Daniel watching from a distance. Their eyes met briefly, a silent thank you passing between them. She knew he had helped save her from a mistake that might have destroyed her. Later, alone with Jake, Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being brave enough to tell me the truth, for fighting for us." Jake kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for giving me a second chance." The night stretched on, filled with laughter, music, and promises. Emma knew challenges would come, but she felt ready. Together, they had faced the darkest moments and emerged stronger. Their love was no longer just a dream or a fairy tale. It was real, tested, and true. And as they danced beneath the stars, Emma felt a peace she hadn't known before, because this time, she was choosing a future built on truth, trust, and a love that could weather any storm.